My parents like to tell people they raised two strong, independent kids. What they actually raised was one golden child with a permanent safety net and one backup plan with a pulse. And if you've ever wondered what golden child syndrome looks like when it grows teeth, gets a credit limit, and starts planning a destination wedding, buckle up. I'm Ethan, 35. My sister Sophie is 30. From the outside, we look like a normal suburban family. A 4-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, good schools, 2 cars in the driveway, vacations every year, Florida, Carolinas, the usual "we're doing fine" postcard life. My dad worked pharmaceutical sales. My mom was a dental hygienist part-time. Not private jet rich, but comfortable. The kind of family that people assume has it together. Inside the house, it was a different ecosystem entirely. One where Sophie was the son, and I was the furniture. The dynamic snapped into place the day Sophie arrived, when I was 4. Before that, I think I was just a kid. After that, I was the practice child, the beta version, the one they could do right by learning what not to do, so they could get it perfect for the daughter my mom had always wanted. It wasn't subtle. When I played Little League, I'd stand at third base during warm-ups and scan the bleachers like my eyes were radar. Half the time, I saw nothing but strangers and folding chairs. If my parents showed up at all, it was late, with a tired excuse and a distracted expression like they were doing me a favor by being in the same zip code. Sophie started dance at 5. My parents didn't miss a single recital, not one. They'd sit front row like it was opening night at Broadway. Flowers, cameras, the whole "Our Girl is the Moment" production. Then they'd take her out for celebration dinners afterward, white tablecloth places where they'd toast her with sparkling lemonade while I ate leftover spaghetti at home with a babysitter. Christmas mornings were the part that hurt in a slow, humiliating way because it was so public. My gifts were practical: clothes, a backpack, a good book. Once, a dictionary, another year, socks and underwear like I'd joined a monastery. Sophie had a mountain: dolls, games, art sets, gadgets, a bike one year, a full bedroom makeover another year, paint, new furniture, decorations, the works. Extended family would sometimes comment gently, like they were trying to toss me a life raft. "Wow, Soph sure got spoiled this year." My parents would laugh it off. "Girls need more things." Or my personal favorite, "Ethan's not materialistic." They convinced themselves I liked being overlooked, as if neglect was a personality trait. By high school, I learned the rule: wanting things out loud only made me look ungrateful, so I stopped wanting things where anyone could see. When I tried to join debate team, I was genuinely excited, like I'd finally found a place where my brain mattered. The registration fee was $30. My parents told me we couldn't afford it. They said I should focus on grades instead. That same year, they spent $1,000 on a custom outfit for Sophie's 8th grade graduation. 8th grade. I saw the receipt on the counter and just stared at it because it felt like watching someone write your value on paper in bold ink. That was the message for the next decade and a half. Sophie was an investment. I was an expense. So I adapted. At 14, I got a dishwashing job at a local cafe. The owner paid cash and didn't care how old I was as long as I showed up. I worked Friday nights and Saturday mornings, hands raw from heat and soap, smelling like grease. I saved every dollar in a shoebox under my bed until I could open my own account. At 16, I paid for my own car insurance. At 17, I bought myself a used Honda Civic off Craigslist for $4,000, negotiated down to $3,500, like it was an Olympic sport. My parents praised me for being so responsible, like independence was a cute hobby. 2 years later, Sophie got a brand new Volkswagen Jetta when she got her license. She totaled it 6 months later, rear-ending someone while texting. They got her another one. College was the same story, just with higher price tags and better excuses. I started at community college, commuted, worked, transferred to a state school for civil engineering, and signed student loan paperwork like I was signing a contract with Gravity. I graduated with $45,000 in debt. Years later, I learned there had been a college fund for me. My grandparents had contributed. Aunts and uncles tossed money into it on birthdays. There should have been at least $35,000 in there when I turned 18. My parents drained it to pay for Sophie's private prep school tuition because she decided public school was too easy. The truth was simpler. Her friends were going, and she didn't want to be left out. They paid $20,000 a year for 3 years. Sophie graduated with a 2.8 GPA and no acceptances beyond the local community college. When I brought it up later, my mom said, "You were doing fine in public school. Sophie needed a challenge." I didn't argue. By then, I'd stopped thinking of them as people who would be fair if I explained things correctly. Fairness wasn't a misunderstanding. It was absent by design. I built my life anyway. I got a job after graduation, started at $55,000, worked my way up, took every tough assignment, showed up early, stayed late, earned promotions. By 30, I was making $85,000 as a project manager. I bought a condo on my own, furnished it with Craigslist and IKEA, saved 10% of every paycheck like it was religion. Meanwhile, Sophie ricocheted between passions like a pinball. Photography for 6 months, $4,000 in equipment on my parents' card, 20 paid shoots, then boredom, social media manager for a few months, posting posting on Instagram and calling it work, then artisan candles. My parents funded a basement setup like they were backing a startup. Equipment, supplies, website, branding. She made maybe a dozen candles before deciding it wasn't her calling. Then yoga instructor. My parents paid for certification in California. Course fees, travel, lodging, the whole spiritual reinvention package. Nothing stuck. Nothing made real money. Every venture died quietly and was replaced by another one, and my parents treated each pivot like a brave artistic journey. Sophie lived rent-free in a finished basement apartment they renovated specifically for her. 1,000 square feet, full kitchen, bathroom, private entrance. She was 30 and had never paid a utility bill, never felt the gut-drop fear of an unexpected car repair, never chosen between groceries and a dentist appointment. I kept my distance, showed up for holidays, ate dinner at their table like a polite guest in my own family, let them gush over Sophie's newest dream while my achievements floated past unnoticed like background music. That was my plan, until the event that revealed, in a single week, exactly who they were when I actually needed them. 4 years ago, I started having stomach pain. At first, it was a low ache I tried to ignore because that's what I'd been trained to do. Don't need things, don't make noise. But the pain sharpened, nausea kicked in, fever came and went. I dropped 10 pounds in 2 weeks because I couldn't keep food down. One Saturday morning, I finally drove myself to urgent care, hunched over the steering wheel like I was trying to fold myself in half to survive. The nurse took one look at me and bumped me to the front. The doctor pressed on my abdomen and I almost came off the table. He said, "You need to go to the ER now." I'm calling ahead. "This could be your appendix and it might have ruptured." I drove myself to the ER like an idiot because I lived alone and didn't want to bother anyone. I still hate myself for that decision because I remember gripping the wheel and taking side streets like I couldn't trust myself on the highway. The waiting room was packed. 6 hours on a plastic chair, sweating and shivering, watching people come and go while my pain escalated from bad to I can't think. By the time they got me in for a CT scan, the surgeon had the kind of face doctors wear when they're about to change your life with one sentence. My appendix had ruptured. I had peritonitis, an infection spreading through my abdominal cavity. "This kills people," he said bluntly, because there's no gentle way to say you almost died. They rushed me into emergency surgery within an hour. I signed forms like my hands belonged to someone else. Ceiling lights flashed above me on the gurney like a weird strobing tunnel. They put a mask on my face and told me to count backward from 10. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, then run over again for good measure. Tubes everywhere. A drain in my side that felt medieval. Breathing hurt. Existing hurt. Then came the second truck. The money conversation. I had health insurance through work. Good coverage, except I'd chosen the cheaper high deductible plan because I was young and healthy and trying to be smart. My deductible was $25,000. $25,000. The number didn't even feel real. I asked the billing person to repeat it like I'd misheard. I hadn't. I was on the hook for $25,000 before insurance covered a dime. They offered payment plans. Sympathy. "We'll work with you." But the number stayed the same. I had $18,000 in savings, 3 years of sacrifice, brown bag lunches, no vacations, old car, saying no to trips with friends. That money would be vaporized instantly and I'd still owe more, while also being out of work for weeks, living on 60% of my income. On day 2, lying in a hospital bed with IV antibiotics and pain meds fogging my head, I called my parents. My hands shook dialing the number. I explained the surgery, the complication, the stay, the deductible. I didn't even ask for the full amount. I asked if they could help with anything. Even $6,000 would keep me from financial freefall. I offered to pay it back, interest, a written agreement. I just needed help. Silence. Then my dad said, "That's rough. Have you looked into financial assistance programs?" I had. I made too much to qualify. Another silence. Then my mom got on and used a tone that told me she'd rehearsed this. "Ethan, we'd love to help, but we just don't have that kind of money lying around. Maybe you should have gotten better insurance. This is part of being an adult." I honestly thought I was hallucinating from pain meds. I was in a hospital bed after life-saving surgery and my parents were lecturing me like I'd bought a jet ski on a credit card. I reminded them they'd helped Sophie with a $13,000 car down payment the year before. "That was different," my mom said. "She needed reliable transportation. I need to not drown in medical debt for surgery that kept me alive." My dad took the phone back. "You have a good job. You're smart. You'll figure it out. We raised you to be independent. Handle your own problems." Those words landed like punches because it wasn't just refusal. It was the confirmation that in their mind, I was supposed to absorb pain alone. That was my role. I asked if they could at least visit. "We'll try," my mom said. "Your dad has a presentation Wednesday. I have a charity event Thursday." They visited once in my week-long stay, 40 minutes on a Saturday. Most of that time was spent discussing Sophie's emotional struggle over her her failing candle business. They didn't bring food. They didn't ask what I needed. They checked the box, visited sick kid, and left. Sophie never came. She sent one text, "Sorry you're sick. Hope you feel better soon." That was it, a flower emoji as a tombstone. I was discharged after 7 days. I took an Uber home because asking them for a ride felt pathetic. The driver helped me up the stairs because I could barely walk. I recovered alone, changed my own dressings, monitored my own drains, made my own follow-up appointments, wrestled with insurance paperwork like it was a second job. My coworker Randy found out and organized a meal train. People I barely knew brought groceries, picked up prescriptions, sat with me for an hour so I wasn't alone in the silence. My friend Tim drove 2 hours every few days without me asking, took out trash, helped me shower without soaking bandages, checked that I was taking meds correctly, showed up like a brother when my actual family couldn't be bothered. My parents called twice that month, both times about Sophie. Call 1, Sophie was closing the candle business. Did I want to buy leftover inventory at cost? Call 2, Sophie was excited about yoga certification. Weren't they thrilled? Neither call asked how I was doing. I paid the $25,000 over 3 years, $611 a month for 36 months. Every payment was a monthly reminder of the day my parents chose not to help. My old Honda hit 215,000 miles and started dying, so I postponed replacing it. I postponed saving for a bigger place. I postponed parts of my life like I was stuck behind glass watching time go by. During those years, my parents continued funding Sophie's whims. Every time I heard about another bailout, it felt like someone pressing on a bruise that never healed. When I made the final payment, I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt rage at the lost time, the lost momentum, the stress I never should have carried alone. Then, 3 months ago, just as I was rebuilding my savings and starting to feel financially steady again, my mom called with that bright, excited voice. "Are you free for Sunday dinner? We have wonderful news. We want the whole family there." I assumed Sophie had found a real job, or maybe she was pregnant, something that made sense. I walked into their house and it looked like an engagement party exploded. 2-tier cake, balloons, banner. Sophie sat at the dining table with her boyfriend Ryan, glowing, hands intertwined. Ryan seemed like a decent guy, ET, stable, polite. They were engaged. I congratulated them, played my part, asked the basic questions. Then my dad stood up and tapped his glass with a fork like he was about to announce a scholarship. "We're so excited to help Sophie and Ryan start their life together," he said. "We know weddings are expensive. We've been planning this for months." He paused, proud. "We're giving them $50,000 toward the wedding and their first year of marriage." My stomach did this slow, cold flip. The same parents who couldn't find $25,000 when I was dying were casually offering $50,000 for a wedding. Sophie launched into ideas: Italy, Greece, Amalfi Coast. Something really special that our friends will talk about for years. My mom beamed. "We've been saving specifically for Sophie's wedding for years. We started a fund when she turned 18. We want it perfect. Saving for years. So while I was drowning in debt from a real emergency, they were quietly stockpiling money for Sophie's hypothetical future party." I forced my face into neutral and said, "That's very generous." Dad turned toward me like this was the natural next line. "We're also hoping you'll contribute. As an older brother, it would mean a lot. We were thinking maybe you could chip in, 20 or 25,000. The room went silent. Everyone stared at me like I was holding the final puzzle piece. I said, very carefully, "You want me to give Sophie $25,000 for her wedding?" "It's what family does," Dad said. "We all pitch in during important life moments." Something in me cracked clean in half. Important life moments like emergency surgery? The air dropped 10 degrees. "That was different," Dad snapped. "How was it different?" I asked. "I had insurance with a $25,000 deductible. It wiped out my savings and put me in debt for 3 years. I called you from a hospital bed and you told me to figure it out because I'm an adult." Mom tried to shut it down. "Ethan, this isn't the time." "When is the time?" I said. "You couldn't spare $25,000 when I was literally fighting infection in my abdomen, but you have $50,000 ready for a wedding, and you want me to match the number that nearly ruined me." Sophie scoffed. "A wedding isn't just a party." "You're right," I said, looking at her. "And neither was life-saving surgery. Nobody made a cake for that. Nobody started a fund. Nobody asked how they could help me survive." "You never asked for help," she said. I stared at her like she'd spoken another language. "I called them from my hospital bed." Ryan suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Dad's face went red. "We're not relitigating the past. Are you going to support your sister or are you going to be selfish?" "My answer is no," I said. "You already gave her 50 grand. Have whatever wedding you want. I'm not contributing a dime." Sophie's eyes narrowed. "You're seriously going to ruin my wedding because you're bitter about old medical bills?" "I'm not ruining anything," I said. "And old is hilarious. I made the final payment 8 months ago. Mom Mom leaned in with the guilt voice. We raised you better than this. Family helps family. I stood up and put on my jacket. Family does help family. Apparently that rule only applies when it's Sophie. I walked out while the balloons bobbed in the background like they were applauding. That night, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. When I got home, I texted Tim. You will not believe what just happened. He replied instantly, come over. The fallout began before sunrise. My mom called at 6:30 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. By lunch, I had 17 missed calls and texts ranging from we need to talk to how can you do this to your sister. Dad's text got short and sharp. Sophie sent a long message about how I was abandoning her during the most important time of her life. I didn't respond. My aunt Jessica called a few days later. She's my mom's older sister, usually the sensible one. Your mother called me in tears, she said carefully. I'm sure she did, I replied. And for the first time in my life, I told the whole story to someone in the family. The favoritism, the college fund, the appendicitis, the $25,000 deductible, the phone call where they told me to handle my own problems, the wedding announcement, the demand for another $25,000. There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, Jessica said quietly, your mother never mentioned the surgery situation. They didn't tell anyone. Ethan, that's not just favoritism, that's cruelty. Hearing someone say it out loud, someone who wasn't Tim, someone who wasn't a coworker, felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. Jessica told me, you're not the villain. Don't let them guilt you. My parents escalated anyway. Sophie's friend messaged me that Sophie had complained about her selfish brother in a wedding planning group. Screenshots, strangers calling me names based on a one-sided story. I sent the screenshots to Sophie. Really? You're airing our family online? She replied, maybe if everyone calls you out, you'll realize how wrong you are. That was the moment I stopped trying to be polite and started trying to be free. I told my parents we needed to meet. One time, neutral place, a coffee shop near their house. I showed up Saturday morning with a folder. They looked annoyed before I even sat down, like I was late to an appointment they didn't respect. I'm going to say this once, I began. I'm not giving Sophie money for the wedding. Not $25,000, not $500, nothing. Mom started, Ethan, I held up my hand. You raised me to be independent and handle my own problems. Those were your words and I listened. So I'm doing what you trained me to do. I'm protecting my life and my finances without expecting you to show up. Dad tried. This is different. No, I said. You taught me family doesn't bail each other out. I learned that lesson when I was in a hospital bed. I opened the folder and slid out the hospital bill summary. $25,000. Then I slid out a list I'd made. Everything I knew they'd funded for Sophie over the years. Cars, tuition, basement apartment remodel, business ventures, certification courses, gear, travel. Their faces went pale in a slow, dawning way. This is what happened, I said. I paid that debt over 3 years while you funded her self-discovery. I'm done. I'm not contributing to the wedding. I'm not attending. And moving forward, I'm treating you the way you treated me. Polite distance and zero support. Mom whispered, you're cutting us off? I looked her straight in the eye. No, you cut me off 4 years ago. I'm just accepting the reality you created. Dad snapped. You're throwing away your family over money. I didn't raise my voice. You chose money over me when I needed you. I'm just respecting that choice. I stood up, left the folder on the table, and said, keep it. Show it to people when they ask why I'm not at the wedding. Then I walked out. The nuclear fallout hit immediately. My parents told relatives I'd disowned the family. At first, a lot of people believed them, because my parents are good at sounding reasonable if you only hear their version. But then Jessica started talking. She told people what actually happened, and something weird happened. The family narrative cracked. Relatives called me, not to scold, but to ask questions. My Uncle John called and said, I'm disgusted. I had no idea they left you hanging like that. My cousin Emily, a nurse, was horrified. They didn't help after emergency surgery. That's not just unsupportive. That's horrifying. A bunch of people assumed my parents had helped me financially, because that's what decent parents do. When they found out the truth, the poor Sophie sympathy campaign lost momentum. Meanwhile, my life got quieter in the best way. I blocked my parents' numbers, made my social media private. For the first time, I stopped bracing for the next guilt grenade. Work went well. I got another promotion and a raise. I started dating someone who didn't treat me like an afterthought. Tim and I took a trip. Nothing fancy, just a week away. And it was the most restful I'd felt in years. 6 weeks later, I got an email from my dad. We need to talk. I didn't open it. I sent it to spam. The wedding happened last month. Jessica told me it was fine, but smaller than Sophie wanted. Apparently $50,000 doesn't stretch as far as you think when your dream includes Italy, influencers, and a mood board made of other people's money. And here's the truth I've been sitting with since all of this. I didn't lose my family when I refused to pay for a wedding. I lost the illusion of my family 4 years ago in a hospital bed when I realized my survival wasn't worth their inconvenience. Cutting them off didn't break me. It finally stopped the slow bleeding. So no, I didn't fund Sophie's fairy tale. I funded something else instead, my own peace.